like to thank Chef David Haviland for using fresh ingredients in an Elizabethan menu.
It was good,
Now
very
we
good.
Formalities, and at this point we go off the record. I think we've been off the record for a long time, but let's just make sure we're off the record at this point so we can have some fun. Every year we give an award, a Legend of the Arts Award, to someone who we feel has contributed to the arts in a major way. But it's the program committee that makes the decision. So I always like to get the affirmation of the people present at this dinner before we confer the award. Now, we've never had a situation, Peter, not that I'm addressing this to anyone in particular, we've never had a situation where the crowd has not affirmed it, but I just want to say that we do have to go through this formality. So would everyone who thinks that Peter Gelb should get the Harvard Club Legend of the Arts Award for 2022 say aye?
Aye.
If we have any nays, you can go to Yale. Peter, would you come up and join me here so that we can do a formality of the presentation? Jeremy, we have this is it. Peter, I present you with the Harvard Club Legend of the Arts Award on the occasion of Shakespeare's birthday. Now, you might think it's just this plaque, but we also have a bag behind you with a Harvard Club tankard in it.
I'm very grateful.
Well, if I may invite you to take that seat, I'll take this seat and then I'll ask you questions, which in the matter of any examination will become progressively more difficult.
That's my life. Thank you.
Yeah,
Thank you
it's a
all very
decision.
much. I'm delighted to be here.
Okay, what's your favorite color?
Thank you for saying aye.
Everyone here knows your name. Everyone here knows your job title. But I think that for a lot of people, the impression of what the general manager of the Metropolitan Opera does was defined by A Night at the Opera in what, 1933, 1934 movie. And they have no idea what you actually do. Could you give us some idea whether it's an administrative job, a financial job, an artistic job, a psychological job? What is it?
Well, the movie you referred to is a pretty good, accurate description of what I do. My job is to run the largest performing arts company in the United States. Hopefully not run it into the ground. I have been doing this job for 16 years, and my job involves a sort of it's a combination of trying to imagine what an institution should be like artistically, never taking for granted what it has been, and trying to think of ways to attract new audiences. My job is both artistic and economic, in that I'm responsible, like any producer, for all aspects of the company's activities, whether it's choosing new operas, casting singers, firing singers, raising money. Hopefully some of you are people who have donated to that. I see a few of you out there, and for which I'm very grateful. And I have to sort of, work around the clock to do all these things. I have a clause in my contract, which I signed 16 years ago, which says I have to be available to the Met 24/7. And in fact, that's how it works out. So I have, I don't know if the Harvard Club has a rule against mobile devices being on, but mine is on, and it's in my pocket, and hopefully it won't vibrate while we're sitting here, and I won't have to run out of this room and tend to some disaster at the Met. But right now we have a performance of Madame Butterfly going on, and since my phone hasn't vibrated, I assume it's going okay.
What leads someone to this sort of career? I mean, people with kids, when they're little, want to be astronauts, cowboys, doctors, nurses. How do you grow up saying, someday I want to be general manager of baseball?
Well, when I was a little boy, I wanted to be a cowboy. My mother used to be very upset when I went for my nursery school interview and I introduced myself as Peter Stone, Gale Beyond Cowboy. But I knew, you know, I grew up in New York and I loved the performing arts as a child. My father was the second string drama critic before he went on to a much more illustrious career as the ultimately managing editor of the New York Times. But when I was a child, I was taken to the theater. I saw Hamlet at Donald Madden, I think, for the first time when I was about 6 or 7. And so Shakespeare had an impact on my life. And certainly, because I was very much I was excited by the performing arts, and I loved the idea of working in the performing arts. But when I was in school, I worked as an usher at the Metropolitan Opera a few nights a week when I was in high school. But earlier than that, when I was my earliest memory of opera, I guess, was watching Amal the Night Visitor, which was an annual presentation on NBC TV. But the opera by Menotti. But when I was about 13 years old, within a year or so of the new Met opening at Lincoln Center, my parents took me, they were invited by Rudolph Bing, who was the illustrious general manager of the Met at the time, to attend a performance of Carmen. And we were seated in his box, and in the middle of the performance, which was being sung by a wonderful singer named Grace Bumbry, who was singing the title role. In the middle of the performance, somebody in the next box over started yelling "Phooey" or something like that at the top of his voice, and Bing grew apoplectic, jumped out of his box, raced over to the next box, and grabbed these people by the neck and threw them out of the theater. And I was very impressed by that. But that was like the highlight of the performance. So I don't think that necessarily set me on the course of becoming the next or a later general manager of the Met. But it was exciting to see. And when I was in high school, my job one night in the week, 2 nights a week I worked at the Met. Actually, it was one night, one matinee. On Saturday matinees, I was in charge of the standing room in the orchestra. But I forget what it was, Tuesday or Wednesday night. I was in charge of the standing room, the family circle, which is the nosebleed section of the Metropolitan Opera, all the way at the very top of the Met. And in those days, the most rabid opera fans of the great singers of the day, which consisted of singers like Renato Tebaldi and Franco Corelli and Leontine Price, each of them had their own fan clubs and plaques, and they would assemble to see their favorite singers every night, and inevitably get into fights with each other over their favorite singers. And my job was to, even though I was only 16 years old, was to somehow break up these fights, and which was not easy to do. And I would have to bring in as reinforcements the security men who were the off-duty firemen who moonlighted at the Met. But it was an incredible experience for me because that was where I really fell in love with opera. And it's not even though it was just one night a week, I would get to hear the great voices of the time. And it's not when I decided that I would someday become the general manager of the Met, but I knew that rather than go on to college, I was going to go to work. And when I graduated from high school, that's what I did. My first job was working as an office boy for Sol Kirok, who was the famous Russian entrepreneur, impresario, who was responsible for, among other things, changing Arthur Rubinstein's name to Artur Rubinstein to make him more exotic for the American public. And who I remember working for him as an office boy and delivering a message to Maria Callas, who was on her farewell tour of America with her sometimes lover and fellow performer, the tenor De Stefano, and arriving at their hotel room, delivering a message, I think which was from Hurock, asking her to pay him his commission, and not being able to enter the room because they were throwing plates at each other inside the hotel room. But these are all experiences that were formative in my career and set the stage for me to understand how to deal with opera singers today, who usually don't throw plates at each other. But it was all, sort of a process that I had many different jobs in my career, but certainly it ended 16 years ago, or didn't end. It began 16 years ago when I was invited to become the 16th general manager of the Met in 2006.
Well, the plate throwing leads naturally to the next question. Politics within the opera. If you're in a business, you can incentivize by giving financial rewards. In the military, you can give an order. In a family, you can make someone feel guilty. In a nonprofit organization, you can beg. But what do you do when you're dealing with people who created the word diva? How do you manage this?
Well, my philosophy, my predecessor, Joe Volpe, who rose from the ranks of carpenter, stage carpenter to general manager, had a somewhat more severe policy when dealing with artists. He's very famous for having this showdown with Angela Gheorghiu, the fiery Romanian soprano, who didn't like the color of her wig as she was asked to sing, when she was singing the role of Michaela in Carmen. And Volpe was famously quoted as saying to her, "Your wig is going on with or without you." My approach to dealing with singers is slightly different in that and I presume there are no opera singers in the room, they're all gone. But I'm a firm believer in the end justifying the means. I will do anything, almost, to get a great singer onto the stage and singing well. My patience, my philosophy of the end justifying the means goes out the window if the singer isn't good. But if the singers are great, I want to do everything I can to support them and to get them to perform. And that has been my kind of informal credo ever since I managed the career of Vladimir Horowitz, who was more of a diva or divo than any opera singer who ever lived. So I've had my share of temperamental artists who I've dealt with.
Well, let's talk about politics on the other side of the stage, the audience. Nowadays we have people who prefer the older productions. We have people who only know if there's a new production. How do you balance this and how do you program a season?
We balance old productions and new productions. Well, certainly when I first arrived at the Met, I think the audience was much more conservative in its taste than it is today. I think over the years, the audiences have grown to realize that for opera to survive, it is necessary to chart a path of new creativity and originality. And in fact, during the pandemic, I realized that for the future of this company to really survive, it's going to be absolutely necessary to create, to really double down and have more new experiences, more new operas, more new productions than ever before. Because the audiences that we hope to attract, which are new audiences, need to experience opera as a relevant art form that they can relate to today. And at the same time, of course, we respect the older productions and the audiences that emphasis has to change in the direction of the new, for the art form to survive going forward. Which is why this season we have 3 new operas premiering at the Met. We began the season with Fire Shut Up in My Bones, Terence Blanchard's new opera, which I might add, for those of you who have their doubts about new operas, sold more tickets than any other opera we presented this season, sold out its performances. And we followed that with another new opera, Matthew Aucoin's Eurydice, and we now have Hamlet, Brett Dean's new opera, coming up in the spring, later in the spring. So that's the most number of new operas the Met has presented since 1928. And in the coming seasons, we'll be presenting more new operas. Next year we have another new opera of Terence Blanchard, Champion, which is about the life and times of, based on the true story of welterweight and middleweight boxing champion Emil Griffith. We also have fantastic new work by American composer Kevin Poots called The Hours, which is inspired and adapted from the Michael Cunningham novel and the film that starred Meryl Streep and Nicole Kidman and Julianne Moore, which in our case has Renee Fleming as a vehicle for her return to the opera, to the stage of the Met, and Kelly O'Hara, the Broadway star, who was operatically trained, and Joyce DiDonato. So, I'm very interested in new work because new work is the pathway to new success and new audiences. And I know some audiences believe that anything that is new in classical music can't possibly be good, but that's based upon, as we were talking about at our dinner table earlier, is based upon the history of very inaccessible new music that permeated the last half of the last century and really gave new classical music, new opera, a really bad name. Composers who wrote operas in the latter half of the 20th century, with a few notable exceptions like Philip Glass, did not write for audiences. They wrote, I don't know what they wrote for, but they certainly didn't write for the public. And the opera composers today, this is a new golden age of opera, where there are composers who are incredibly gifted, incredibly talented, who want to engage the audience, and who are picking stories. And part of my job is acting as a marriage broker between composers and librettists, and helping them choose stories and casting them with our top singers, so that the new operas today have a great chance of success. Not everything we do is going to be successful, but I think that we have a very good track record, and I think that audiences are going to come to these operas, and it's really going to pave the way for the future of our art form, without giving up on the old as well.
I said the questions would get harder, and I have one more question, but I think
That was easy.
that was the easy one. I think we have one thing to confront that I think will make everyone think, and I'm very interested in what your sincere answer is. If a year ago you had been asked, would you ever make a programming decision based on the politics of the performer? I'll bet your answer would have been, no, I won't do that. And I'll bet the answer of everyone in this room, if they were in a position like yours, would have been, no, I won't do that. And yet recently, admirably in my view, you have done so. With Gergiev, with Trebko.
Well, Gergiev, we didn't have to make a decision because he had no future engagements at the Met for other reasons. In the case of Trebko, I mean, the decision was very clear. I think I was saying to you earlier, on February 23rd, I was in Moscow for the final dress rehearsal of a production of Lohengrin that was meant to be a co-production of the Bolshoi Opera and the Metropolitan Opera. And I was speaking to a bunch of Russian journalists about the ratcheting tension between Russia and the rest of the world because of Ukraine. But none of the people I was speaking to believed what was going to happen would happen. They thought it was all, saber rattling. And, I have spent my life, before I came to the Met, throughout the Cold War, producing projects of cultural merit in Russia. I brought Vladimir Horowitz to Moscow at the height of the Cold War. I made a film about Rostropovich and Vishnevskaya returning from exile after they had been booted out by Brezhnev for harboring Solzhenitsyn. I produced Tchaikovsky's 150th birthday concert in what was still St. Petersburg, the day food rationing was introduced as the Soviet Union was collapsing. But the difference now, when I returned from Moscow on the 24th and got off the airplane and saw that Russia had invaded, everything was different. This is no longer an issue of politics. Politics has nothing to do with this. This has to do with brutal war and world repulsion and by it and the actions of Putin, and how we have to all band together to defeat this monster. And anybody who's affiliated with him in any close form can't perform at the Met. It's as simple as that. So it's not a political decision. It's a decision based upon humanity. So that's why it's very clear and easy for me, not easy because I built up Netrebko's career at the Met, but clear that was a decision that had to be made.
I won't ask you to give anything else away, but is there anything else you would like to say to this audience? We appreciate the fact that you've come here tonight. We're honored that you agreed to be honored by us. So if there's anything you'd like to add, this is the moment to do so.
The only thing I would add, Jonathan, just, I know I've said this in interviews, but, having repudiated Netrebko, I think what is totally wrong is to repudiate, and I'm sure all of you would agree, I hope you would agree, is to repudiate Russian art or Russian artists. The same day that Putin held an event in Russia claiming that the West was canceling Russian culture, we were producing a performance of Eugene Onegin on the stage of the Met, and starring Igor Golovatenko, who was one of the leading Russian baritones. So our mission is to not forget and to honor, to the contrary, to honor Russian art, and hope for the day when we can resume relations with Russia. I don't think that's going to be possible if Putin is in charge, I gave an interview in the Guardian a few weeks ago, where I said that our goal was to cancel Putin, not Pushkin. If you like that line, there's a kitchen magnet on sale at the Metropolitan Opera gift shop that says that. And we're going to continue to support Ukraine. We're very proud of the fact that the Met has led the way in supporting Ukraine from the very beginning of the conflict. The first performance we had after the invasion, we began with the performance of the national anthem of Ukraine. We gave a concert a few weeks later in honor of Ukraine. And as I was saying to my fellow diners at our table, we're in the process of putting together a very big project in support of Ukraine that will be announced next week, which will demonstrate further that the Met is leading the artistic world and joining the artistic world in doing what we can to defend Ukraine culturally, and we will continue to do that. And I think it's very important that we do that.
Peter, thank you. You are a legend of the arts. And let the music begin again. If the musicians are still here.
These musicians are up there.